been a confusing, a stressful, tragic week. There's a lot going on, and when that happens, the best thing you could do is prepare a comforting meal with a lot of love. And that's what we're gonna do today. Kobe! You know, between this, that, and the other thing, there's a lot going on. It's distracting. It's distracting for me. I'm sure it's distracting for you. So it's time like these when cooking is vitally important for us. Distract yourself in a good way. And so you get some friends together, you get your family together, you cook something wonderful, and you try and share that love with whoever it is. Today we're gonna make something that is perfect for that. It screams comfort. It's actually an Irish dish, and it's shepherd's pie, or today it's cottage pie. Basically, they're the same thing. The only difference between shepherd's pie and cottage pie is shepherd's pie uses lamb, cottage pie uses beef. And I'm gonna title this video Shepherd's Pie just because it's just a better title for YouTube, you know? The first time I saw shepherd's pie was at a friend's house when I was really young. Shout out to Gavin. His babysitter made essentially mashed potatoes on top of like a just sauteed ground beef. It probably wasn't like authentic shepherd's pie, but I remember that's what they called it. And I looked at it and was like, it looks amazing. The idea of the mashed potatoes, it was the first time I had sort of thought of that or seen it. I was obsessed with it. And it wasn't until years later when I made it myself, but it's one of my favorite things to eat for sure. And there's so many ways to make it, but today we're just gonna do really simple, easy way to get it done. This was a way to use leftovers. So if you think of it in terms of that, then, you know, next time you make a huge batch of a braise or a stew, and you have potatoes, like double the batch, and then you can make this the next day with the leftovers. So let's just get into it. There's a few steps we gotta really cover. So when I think about approaching this dish, it is essentially the same kind of approach and technique I would for like a bolognese or chili. I'm gonna use a blender to cut the vegetables, but I'm not gonna maybe cut them as fine as I would for bolognese. I kind of might want some texture. You could always dice the vegetables, but it's just a little bit faster to do it this way. Just gonna wash these real quick. We just wanna chop these up a little fine just so the blender can just quickly and easily chop it up kind of the same size. Normally for the bolognese sauce, I would blend each one individually just so they all get to the right texture, but you know, today's one of those days where I'm just lazy, so I'm just gonna throw it all in at the same time. This isn't a precision dish, so I'll just blend it to like a nice coarseness. Okay, so our vegetables are chopped. So now I've got some Irish cheddar, some aged cheddar. I'm gonna go ahead and just grate this up while I'm here. This is going in my potatoes. Cheese is grated, that's ready to go. I've got some of my brodo, which has beef in it, so I'm gonna use it. It's kind of like a utility all-purpose. It's got chicken and beef, so it just has a nice balanced flavor. It's delicious. And this is just kind of slightly frozen, but I'm just gonna throw this on the stove when I'm over there. Should fully melt it, bring it up to temperature, and I'm gonna use this as kind of the base of the sauce. We've got some tomato paste, that's gonna be the base of the sauce too, and we're gonna use some Guinness. So we're gonna just kind of feel that Irish vibe out. It just feels right. And then we have frozen peas and frozen sweet corn, some organic peas and corn. Those sit in your freezer. That's another great thing I didn't touch upon to have in your freezer all the time. And then our veg. We've also got some ground beef. This is 2 pounds, 80-20 ground beef. So we got some nice fatty beef in there, and that's gonna be the base. We've also got some potatoes, and I'm gonna throw an egg yolk in it to kind of give it a little binding activity, so it's more of like a pie, and it kind of holds together a little bit. And of course some Irish butter, grass-fed butter, to go in the cooking process. So I don't think we have much prep. Yes, we do have prep. We gotta do the potatoes. So I'm just gonna peel these guys, get them into a pot. I'll fill this up with water, some cold water, so we can soak these guys as we're peeling them so they don't oxidize on us. And then just peel your potatoes. I like to start at the tops and bottoms and just give yourself a little area, and then you can go from top to bottom in big strokes like that. You can always clean it up afterwards so you don't have to be perfect in the first go. And there, check for any bruises, and there's usually a dimple cleaner on these on these peelers. So you can just go in and clean out the dimple like that, or any bruises. Then now go into the water. You could save these peels and throw them into a vegetable stock. So now we have our potatoes in some water, and I'm just gonna kind of agitate them to get some starch off, rinse them, and then dice them up into even dices, get them back into cold water and onto the stove. Cut them in half, cut the halves in half, and then go through and dice. Cold water. Of course, now we're gonna add a little Celtic sea salt, Irish, again, keeping the whole Irish theme going. They sent me some salt, which is always appreciated. This is quality salt, really good for you. It's the real deal kind of salt, so I appreciate them sending this to me. This is gonna go on the stove now. We're gonna bring it up to a boil. Once it gets up to a boil, we're gonna drop it down to a simmer, and we're gonna cook these until they're just very tender. Tender enough for us to just push through a ricer. So here's everything that's going into the meat mixture. My ground beef, my veg, my herbs, Guinness, Worcestershire sauce, tomato paste, and beef stock. Or brodo, whatever you have, chicken stock, vegetable stock, whatever you have, it's fine. This thing's ready to go. Like I said, this is the same sort of technique as our bolognese or our chili. We're going to really take time to develop flavor and caramelization in the beef and in the vegetables. If at any point I see the fond at the bottom of the pan start to get too dark and I still have a lot of time before I'm done caramelizing, you can always add a little bit of Guinness or the beer or whatever you're deglazing with, or some stock, and that's gonna deglaze the bottom of the pan and save it from burning, and then you can keep caramelizing and developing flavor. That's a trick. It's also developing more flavor the more you do that. So that's a good trick. We're ready to go. Let's just get on over and get this thing going. Now, while the meat is cooking, let's just get our potatoes ready to go. They have to cool a little bit before we add that egg yolk to it, so we have to consider that. Ricer. I'm gonna just run the potatoes through the ricer. I'm gonna throw in some of that butter, that grass-fed Irish butter, some of that Celtic sea salt, some of this cheddar, and then mix. So you see that? It's got some body to it. I'm not serving these like mashed potatoes on the side. I want them simpler because we got a more flavorful broth, kind of stewy thing gonna go on. So I sort of like this thicker consistency. I can sort of create like nice little ridges. It'll hold up when it bakes, and when it's cut, it'll kind of stand at attention, and that's what I want. And then I have some of this cheddar. I can sprinkle a little up top while we bake it. Get a nice little cheesy crust. And then once this cools, I'm gonna add the egg. So I'm gonna just set this over to the side for a second. And here we are. This looks perfect. It's like a bolognese essentially, except it's got some different flavors in it. It's equally delicious. And it's a nice viscosity. We want it a little thick. It's gonna continue to bake, and we wanna kind of have this thick little mass at the end. So still need to add our corn and our peas. Take out that bay leaf and the herbs. I mean, that looks yummy. It's perfect. The potatoes have cooled. I'm gonna add my egg yolk now, mix it in really well. So now we're back to our baking dish. Same one we used last time. Basically like an 8.5 by 5-inch sort of baking dish. First I wanna grease the bottom with some more of that grass-fed butter. Then in with our beef. Just sort of dot the mashed potatoes on top, and we can kind of even it out and decorate it later. So now we want to add like ridges to it. So I'm just gonna take a knife, I'm gonna take a fork and just sort of shape it and give it some of these textures. And then just finish with just a little bit of cheese on top. Now, just like before, this thing's gonna leak. It already is leaking, so let's get it onto this guy. So now this is gonna go into a 400-degree oven. We're gonna bake it till it's bubbly and the top looks brown and delicious. You know the deal. We just covered baked ziti. You know, same principles. Anything baked, that's basically how we're gonna do it. And now I've got the second half of the mashed potatoes and the beef, and I'm gonna put that into another dish, and then that's another meal. Same thing I did with my baked ziti. And there you go. 2 meals, 1 day of work. Now it's just gonna bake for about 30 minutes, I would say 20 minutes. Just again, it's until it looks bubbling and browned. That's really what we're looking for. The smell. I mean, look how crispy that is. So now we're just gonna let this cool and then serve it up. I mean, this bite is what I was obsessed with when I first laid my eyes on it, and I've loved it ever since. You got some rich beef flavor, the Worcestershire sauce, the stock, and you have pops of sweetness from the corn and the peas, and you have this cheesy, smooth potato that kind of brings it all together, and it sort of makes it a complete meal. And it's just filling and homey and delicious. And the best part about it is got that twice baked potato sort of kind of thing going for it, which is always delicious. Well, there you have it. I mean, when the world starts bogging me down, pick my head up, get myself in the kitchen, and I feed myself Or if I can, I feed others. Everything else sort of just vanishes. You lock into your world, your kitchen, focus on the people you're with and you're feeding, and it's a way to detox yourself from all that's around you. It's a good tip. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to all of you who support me. Appreciate all of you. I'm very grateful. I hope everyone's doing well, and make sure you feed people. It's your job. Now that you cook, your job is to feed people and share that love and put those good vibes out there into the world and make people happy. That's how you kind of combat all the bad juju. Anyway, that's all that I have. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all. Grateful for you all. I'll see you next time. Until then, guys, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.